Bill King, usually good to give us some of his time here on a Wednesday, and we always appreciate that. He is the king of college football talk on Nashville Sports Radio from 6 to 9, Monday through Friday. Bill, we've been doing Vandy Whistler Hate Week all week long. You were the guy to tell me, I think that was 3 or 4 years ago, about it's not just one guy, it's two of them. And I'm assuming at least one of them is going to be here at Ball and Walker this upcoming weekend because they don't miss series. We're trying to find ways to keep them out or at least drown them out a little bit. I don't know of another fan or two fans in all of the SEC or maybe all of college sports that are more annoying. So I'm really hopeful that we can quiet these guys down as soon as possible.
One of them, and I used to know the other guy's name, but one of them's name is Preacher Franklin. I'm not kidding. Yep. That is his name, Preacher Franklin. And apparently, I don't know enough about whistling, but apparently they're not similar in their delivery or their cadence or whatever you would call it. But yeah, they can annoy you. See, I live here. I guess I'm just used to it watching their games. I never noticed it, but boy, of other fans, it's fingernails on a chalkboard to all other fans. I understand that.
Well, the fans that sit around, you like some people have texted into the show, like, why don't the fans around him do something about it? They clap with him. Like, that's just, they're part of his routine. So even Tim Corbin has said, the guy pays his money. I mean, he's allowed to make as much noise as he wants to, and if it helps his team, then so be it.
Now, they've been called out by security at road games before. I mean, just because of whistling, they don't ever try and fight people. These are old guys now, real old guys. I think they've had some university department people approach them during games to chill them down a little bit. And then I think they've had some fans that probably had a few too many pops try and get into it with them. So when they go on the road, they understand that there could be trouble.
Yeah, I read about the story of the Mississippi State fans that kind of did have a little too much to drink after a game at Hawkins, and they went at him a little bit. I'm not advocating for that, not violence.
Right.
But let's drown them out a little bit. I brought this up early in the show. You see how this I don't know if there was an announcement, but from this NCAA committee or subcommittee that the conferences are going to be getting the autonomy to decide how many coaches, how many scholarships for all of the sports on each campus within the conference. So if you're the SEC and you have the most dominant league in college baseball, I was talking with Dave Van Horn about this. Maybe you fund 17, maybe you fund 20 scholarships, maybe you fund 27 of them. But this would be like one of the only ways to kind of bring Vanderbilt down to earth a little bit more, because they do have this advantage with the ability to toss out the need-based scholarships. That would kind of change things for Vandy in baseball, wouldn't it?
I talked to Tim Corbin about this 10 years ago whenever they went into New York City and got Pedro Alvarez, number one prospect in America. New York City, whose dad drove a cab, and Pedro never had a penny of debt. Matter of fact, he had money in his pocket from need-based aid and everything else, and Jim was just telling me this is how we do it. And Pedro Alvarez, other than Vanderbilt's brands, probably never heard of Vanderbilt, right? But and we've been talking about this. If they leave it league to league, and Nick Saban gets 100 scholarships, if you let them do it. What I read was it was partial scholarship sports. But if this is autonomy league by league, God knows what we're about to have happen someday.
Yeah, and Bill, it feels like we're going backwards because we put these scholarship limits in for a reason, right? There was once a time where you could offer 100 scholarships to guys and bring them all onto campus and then whittle your way down and cut them out. Who does this really benefit? Because for them to change the rule outside of the, like you said, the select sports and of course baseball with 11.7 is absolutely ridiculous. But if they do put it into college basketball, into college football, what's the point? I mean, if it doesn't really help make anything better, then why even do it in the first place?
Well, there's a plus and a minus. More scholarships is always good, but it means more people don't get to play, which means more unhappiness. And you got to remember, if you're adding scholarships in the men's sports, federal law says you got to add it in the women's Title IX. So you got to be careful there. You know what you're doing. You know what your balancing act is.
And wouldn't that just make the transfer portal more of a problem? Because you'd have even more people in, because there'd be more unhappy folks who might have been happier if they would have gone to a group of 5 school instead of getting that last 85th scholarship offer from an Alabama. And now they're on the outside looking in, and then we've got more of a mess.
I am sure that being part of the Alabama football program is fun, even for those who,
I'm sure it is,
or understand that they're blocking dummies. I'd rather play. I'd rather get a chance to play. That's where the fun is. Football is a crappy sport if you're not getting to play, or B, you're losing all the time. It's the worst sport when it comes to that. And yeah, it's anytime you adjust whatever you're doing, there's consequences on the other end that you don't think out clearly.
Another thing that we've been talking about a lot today is the pods, and that's going to be a conversation that's going on all through summer and everything like that. But with the news that the NCAA is going to basically tell conferences they can get rid of divisions, determine their own champion the way that they want to, outside of the SEC, when they get to 16, do you think that other conferences will get rid of divisions and kind of try to reinvent the wheel here?
I think we're going to see some of that as early as 23. I think we've got one more year. I'm not saying everybody ditches divisions immediately a year from now, but I think as early as the 23 season, we will see teams that do not play under the format we're used to seeing them play, meaning divisions and some kind of pod set up. I think the ACC is really close from what we understand. And I think the SEC, basically, they've been talking about this for a while. They're not sure what they want to do yet. And again, we don't even know when Texas and Oklahoma can come unless they get out of the contract and pay the money. So they're probably waiting to see what happens there too. How soon?
I would think a move to any, to 4-team divisions or pods or whatever you want to call it, like that has to coincide with Alabama. Oh, I'm sorry, with Texas and Oklahoma coming into the league. There's no other way to do it.
Right. Yeah.
Hey,
I think you're right.
I saw over the weekend that the top 2024 player recruit, Dylan Raiola, a quarterback who's playing in Texas, chose Ohio State for 2024. And we're still waiting on Arch Manning, to make his decision. And he's got like this tour that he's taking this summer, visiting Alabama, visiting Texas, visiting Georgia. But it feels like is it a foregone conclusion that we're going to see Arch Manning playing in the SEC? And I mean, heck, if he's with Texas or if he's with Alabama, potentially he's going to be playing against the Razorbacks more than once.
If you include Texas, yes, but I think it's going to be. I think right now Texas probably leads, and then you've got Alabama, which I think they're going to end up taking Eli Hoistein out of Louisiana. Now, the Dominic Raiola kid is his dad's very famous offensive lineman, Dominic Raiola, played for Nebraska, played in the NFL for about 15 years. And this kid's a big 225-pound, right now sophomore, junior to be, who's rated maybe the top player in the class of 24. Now, again, that can adjust after several years, but they've been lining up quarterbacks about as good as anybody else for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, I mean, they've got C.J. Stroud this year, and then afterwards it'll be Kyle McCord or Devin Brown. So, I mean, they've kind of got their quarterback situation figured out for like the next 4 years, potentially. I mean, they thought they had Quinn Ewers figured out too, and now he's a Texas Longhorn. So that's what college sports is like now, right?
It is, and looking back on it, maybe Quinn Ewers played everybody. Maybe he knew he wasn't going to be able to go in there and get them to bow to him. He got a really good NIL deal, supposedly $1 million in that big old truck. Played it for about, till spring, then packed up his bags and he was quoted the other day saying the Longhorns has always been his dream. So I'm just wondering if he ever had any intent of staying at Ohio State.
So, I mean, we haven't even really brought this up very much. The idea of these guidelines for collectives and boosters to not be allowed to have contact with recruits or players that are in the or that are still with the team before they go into the transfer portal. And I keep reading the experts that are talking to coaches, that are talking to people that are behind the scenes of how all of this is getting done, and they all say the same thing. Like, they think it's adorable. They use the word adorable to for the NCAA to even think that they're going to be able to police this because there's too much of a gray area. So, I mean, what did this announcement from about how to handle collectives and not being able to, for anybody with the collectives or booster organizations to have contact with these student athletes, I mean, why even come out with this?
I think it's more embarrassing to announce you're going to really care than just not do anything. I think this is even more embarrassing. I tweeted this. This would be like, here's a metaphor for you. Showing up a year after the meltdown at Chernobyl, you show up with a water hose, wearing flip-flops, drinking a Natty Light. That's about what we're looking at here, guys. First of all, they're not even staffed well enough to do this. The collectives are smarter than the people investigating, and they're richer. It's just laughable.
Well, that's pretty much the way that I looked at it. It's like, and of course you're gonna bring up an idea of a Natty Light sitting there. That's definitely the way I would have thought you'd describe it, though, Bill. But it is correct. It's a reactive statement. It's not the NCAA getting out ahead of anything because the collectives and the boosters and really the athletes too are just so far ahead of where the NCAA was or is. So this was just like the coaches say we got to do something about this. So here we're just going to say something.
That's a good point. It's messy. It's not going to be clean for a while. It may never get clean. You got to remember the NCAA is the member institutions. Mm-hmm. I mean, do these smarter than thou presidents in their ivory tower who look down at the peasants? Do they just turn their head? Do they all of a sudden care? It makes no sense.
Yeah. It's going to be a wild summer with these statements coming out from committees and subcommittees and then trying to make sense of it all. But, I mean, it's a transformation summer for college athletics, no doubt. Bill, we appreciate you, man. We'll let you go with that. Guys. Thanks for your time and enjoy
appreciate
the Natty Light. I know you will. Bill King from Nashville Sports Radio.
Partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs, fights, and even next season's futures. And don't forget that the MLB is back as well. Who are you picking to win the World Series? BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.